Join me today for another campaign inspiration video, this time about the movie Big Trouble in Little China. Welcome back to the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobby, and today we're going to be doing a new installment of the campaign inspiration videos, which I haven't done in quite a while. And today, like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about Big Trouble in Little China. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the other videos, the idea is that I talk about something that can inspire your D&D campaign or whatever role-playing game you're playing. So I hate to generalize, but I'm probably just going to call it D&D throughout, even if you are playing Pathfinder or any number of other systems. Kind of like for those of you that don't know, Band-Aid is actually not the term for what you put on a wound. That's a brand name. It's an adhesive strip. So anyway, or a bandage, if you will. So yeah, like I said, the idea is to talk about a movie, explain how it can inspire part of your campaign, maybe just an adventure within the campaign, maybe the whole campaign. In the past, I've talked about the two Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan movies, and in fact, they both have different approaches. I'll link to the video, but just to briefly, like the first one, Conan the Barbarian, is more of the outline for a long plot that you'd have to fill in, to stretch it out. But the overall arc of going after Thulsa Doom and destroying the Set cult and all that, whereas Conan the Destroyer is more like just a series of mini adventures that culminate in the big final battle. And in fact, if you did it right, you could merge the two using the mini adventures from Conan the Destroyer to flesh out Conan the Barbarian into a something resembling more of a campaign. Maybe a shorter campaign, but give you the bones at least to do what you got to do. And I also, I think, mentioned a couple sci-fi movies because I offhandedly remarked that sci-fi movies are more difficult to adapt due to the nature of the fact they're science fiction and not magic or anything. So anyway, here we are. So Big Trouble in Little China, for those of you who've never seen the movie, first of all, if you haven't seen the movie, pause this video, go watch it, then come back. It is an excellent movie, an action adventure type movie from the 80s by John Carpenter. And for those of you who that name is unfamiliar, John Carpenter has made a lot of very well-known movies. Now, a lot of his movies weren't commercially successful, but over time, people have realized they've gained a cult following, and then people, venerate them as they should. Now, he had huge success with Halloween. Halloween was successful right out of the gate, made all kinds of money, created all kinds of knockoffs. Yeah, in fact, Friday the 13th began life as a knockoff of Halloween. And I think Nightmare on Elm Street did as well, but I could be mistaken. So you have that. Then he also made The Thing. Now, The Thing is a different kind of horror movie. It's body horror. It's who can you trust. It's all kinds of things. No pun intended, given the name. But it's one of those movies that audiences just didn't catch on to it. It's a lot like Blade Runner. It took a while for the broader audience to realize the brilliance behind it, because The Thing is excellent. It is an excellent horror movie. Could probably also be the basis for a campaign, or at least part of one anyway. So you also have Escape from New York, which was an awesome action movie. Kurt Russell's kind of a common theme in some of these. He's in The Thing, Escape from New York, Escape from L.A., the movie we're going to be talking about here, Big Trouble in Little China. I think he's worked with him on some other movies. But anyway, so you have those movies. Also made a movie called Prince of Darkness, which is a movie dealing with the devil and religion and God, but also like from a physics standpoint, where one of the characters posits that assuming that there is a God and assuming that like physics applies to everything, then there has to be something that equates to like an anti-God, and that's what he posits has been described throughout centuries as the devil. And he's in like the antimatter universe, and it's weird, but it features some of the actors from Big Trouble in Little China, mainly Victor Wong, who in Big Trouble in Little China plays Egg Shen. He plays a physics professor in Prince of Darkness, and then Dennis Dunn, who plays Wang Chi in Big Trouble in Little China, plays one of the students, grad student, I think. And some other notables in that movie are Donald Pleasance, who was also in the Halloween franchise as Dr. Loomis. He's a priest in that movie. And then you also have Alice Cooper, the singer, who plays a random murderous hobo. And, then some other folks that have been in some other movies that I, would have to look up their names and tell you who they are and everything. But we're not really going to be talking about Prince of Darkness. That might be an eventual movie too, or the little video we'll do on here. Might just do a thing talking about John Carpenter's movies. Since I've already spent several minutes talking about that, there's clearly material there. So, Big Trouble in Little China. Kurt Russell plays Jack Burton, who is a truck driver and apparently has some pretty spectacular reflexes and can handle himself in a fight. Then his friend is Wang Chi, played by Dennis Dunn. He lives in San Francisco, in Chinatown. Actually, I'm not 100% certain if he lives in Chinatown. We never actually see where No, we do see his restaurant. It is in Chinatown. And then, like I said, Victor Wong plays Egg Shen, who is a bus driver who drives a tourist bus in Chinatown and a sorcerer. And then James Hong, who, if you don't know who he is, like he's one of those actors, like I'm sure you've seen him in something if you've watched very many movies. Alternatively, if you watched Seinfeld, he was the maitre d' in the Chinese restaurant episode. He actually started his career as a stand-up comedian. So having him wind up in Seinfeld is, appropriate. But he's in lots of movies. He's got a very, very lengthy career. And he plays David Lo Pan, who's the primary villain, who's a 2,000-year-old warrior slash sorcerer who was cursed by the first sovereign emperor of China to be of no flesh. So he's essentially a ghost. And he is trying to break that curse to become mortal again so he can rule the universe. I don't know how becoming mortal affects that, because he seems to be able to affect the physical world just fine as a ghost. The movie never really explains that part. That's one of the only detriments to the movie. Then we have Kim Cattrall as Gracie Law, who is a lawyer who lives in Chinatown and helps people trying to come to the country from China. And those are most of the known actors. We have some other characters like Lo Pan, his three primary henchmen of the three storms: Rain, Thunder, and Lightning. Rain is a swordsman, very slim physique, flexible and all that fun stuff. Then Thunder is a gigantic, muscle-bound kind of guy, and I believe only because of an off-color joke that I'm not going to repeat here. His name is Carter Wong, if I recall correctly. He's a world-class martial artist. And then Lightning can shoot lightning. He's got electrical powers and stuff. So he can create a column of lightning and literally hold on to it and ride down. He can teleport, and he's the really dangerous one. And then beneath them there is the Wing Kong, who are an army of followers, soldiers, something that follow Lo Pan. And loosely associated with them are the Lords of Death Street Gang, and I believe the White Tiger is also associated with them. The White Tiger is the front for it's a prostitution ring, and it's debatable if the ladies are there of their own free will. So then the only other faction that matters are the Chang Sings, who are aligned against the Lo Pan. I don't know anything else about them, so presumably they are just the good guys, but we don't learn a whole lot about them. So we've got two rival armies. The evil army also has like a street gang and the prostitution ring, and also like a front, the Wing Kong Exchange, to kind of make everything kind of legitimate looking. So they have a very extensive operation. And Lo Pan's 2,000 years old. He's had a while to put it all together. And so with them, you've got several tiers of enemies to fight through in your campaign. The lowest, probably the Lords of Death, the Street Gang. Then ultimately moving into the White Tiger, although as presented in the movie, like there's not really a whole lot of fighting. That's more an attempt at subterfuge that doesn't quite work out. With Kurt Russell donning like one of the worst disguises known to man. It's quite hilarious. Yeah, I wish I could remember the fake name that he used. It'll come to me here in a minute. And so you got that. You got a little bit of the higher ups, like the Storms and the Wing Kong, don't exactly communicate very well, because there's definitely like a giant back alley brawl between the two at one point, and the Storms show up and just start indiscriminately killing everybody. Yeah. So then you also have at least 3 legit magic users. You have Lo Pan, who's an evil demon sorcerer, and you have Egg Shen, who's the good sorcerer, and then at the very least Lightning has magic powers. The other two I believe do also, but they're not like fancy shoot things powers. Like Rain has more to do with his combat skills, and Thunder his immense strength and his self-destructibility. So the plot is that Jack Burton shows up in Chinatown, meets up with his friend Wang. They do some gambling and some drinking, and then in the morning they decide that they are going to go to the airport to pick up Wang's girlfriend, Mao Yin, who's coming from China. And once they get to the airport, Jack sees Gracie Law there and instantly falls for her. It's Kim Cattrall, the 80s Kim Cattrall. She was something. So he tries to put the moves on her, but he's been drinking all night, and she wants nothing of it. Also, I should note that Jack as a character is like a legend in his own mind. Like, he thinks he's the main character, but he's really the sidekick here. Wang is really the main character as far as all the fighting and everything. Jack's mainly just kind of there. I mean, he holds his own, but everyone else is using swords and knives and everything. He's using a Tech 9, which, works. Bullets work. Until Thunder gets a hold of it, grabs it by the barrel and punches it and shatters it into a million pieces. So he is tremendously strong. So they go to the airport to pick her up, but then she gets grabbed by the Lords of Death, and they chase them down to Chinatown. That's when they stumble into this big battle between the Chang Sings and the Wing Kong, and then the Storms show up, and Lo Pan shows up, and they've got to make a run for it, and then they've got to kind of regroup back at Wang's restaurant, and they decide that they're going to go in, and first they have to go they find out that she's been sold to the White Tiger. So they try to go in there again. Subterfuge is the name of the game until the Storms show up and wreck the joint, which then leads them to going to the Wing Kong Exchange, and they are able to break in, but they get captured, and then Gracie Law and a couple of the other hangers-on go in to try to get them, and they get captured. Then Jack and Wang escape, try to get the others out, get a bunch of other girls that are being held there. They all escape, but But then Gracie Law gets captured. Now, to break the curse, Lo Pan needs to marry a girl with green eyes. And I believe it's specifically a Chinese girl with green eyes. So, Mao Yin happens to be a Chinese girl with green eyes. It's an insanely rare combination that just doesn't happen. To which Jack actually kind of jokes with Lo Pan at one point, where he talks about, he's sought, across time for this girl, and Jack's like, 2,000, and his name's David Lo Pan. He's like, 2,000 years and you can't find a woman to fit the bill? You must be doing something seriously wrong, Dave. And Lo Pan gets really defensive, and he's like, there have been others, to be sure. Like as if Jack Burton's thoughts matter at all to this being. But the fact that it's like an assault, it's questioning his manhood, essentially. And, Lo Pan gets very defensive. So, turns out, Gracie Law also has green eyes. Also, from a deleted scene, that she was born in China. So she fits the bill for the prophecy also. So he's going to marry both women. Then the second part of the curse, to appease Jindai, the god of the East, he has to sacrifice one of them. So he's going to sacrifice Grace Law, and as he puts it, well, I'm not going to repeat what he says, but he intends on consummating the relationship with Mao Yin, who is probably not too keen on that fact. So that's the point where they have to get Egg Shen and have to rally the Chang Sings and go charging in, but they're going to sneak in through the sewers underneath Chinatown, which is like, somehow it's like the underworld. There's all kinds of fog, and there's dead trees down there, and monsters, and there's like what looks to be oil. Jack's like, what's that, oil? He goes, no. Or he says, what's that? And Egg Shen tells him it's the black blood of the earth. And he's like, you mean oil? He goes, no, I mean black blood of the earth. Talks about, huge earthquakes turned the world upside down 1,000 years ago and released all kinds of unnatural creatures to roam free and commit great offenses against the gods. So you could definitely work some of that into your campaign too. And then, they kill one of the monsters down the sewer after it eats somebody. And then they get into the under part of the Wing Kong Exchange, where Lo Pan has guards walking around like in full ceremonial armor, plus all the Wing Kong guys, the street gang, not the street gang, that's the Lords of Death, but they essentially are a street gang, just more, not more developed, but they're all heavily armed with bladed weapons. And that's the thing. Outside of Jack, almost everyone is using like the kinds of weapons you would find in D&D. Swords, axes, nunchucks, pole staffs, all that kind of fun stuff. And so Jack even uses a boot knife. And so they come in there, and then that's when you see one of the other monsters, which is, I think Egg Shen referred to it as a guardian. And it has, it's like a beholder, except it has two normal eyes, but then it has a bunch of eyes, on stalks, and then on its tongue that comes out, there's an eyeball on the end of it. And as Egg Shen tells him, is like, what it sees, Lo Pan knows. And so it sees them and like sends a signal to Lo Pan. And it eventually gets killed by Wang stabbing it through the head with the sword. So they go into Lo Pan's office, and that's when Egg Shen busts out a magic potion for them all to drink. And he keeps referring to Lo Pan like as an evil dream. And then he tells him only a dream can kill a dream. And he tells him it's a magic potion, lets him see things no other man can see and do things no other man can do. So, you can definitely work that in there somewhere. And then they all get in the elevator to go down to where the big final battle is going to be. And the whole way down, they're sitting there, I've got a really positive attitude about all this. Yeah, I think we can actually do this. You could tell that whatever the drink was also like to bolster their confidence. And that's also, after they talks about the potion, Jack asks Egg what he's got. He's got this big bag on it. It's like, what's that, Egg? He goes, oh, it's a 6-demon bag. He's like, a 6-demon bag, sensational. What's in it, Egg? It's like, oh, fire, lightning, all that kind of stuff. And so, So they go, and the ceremony has begun. and something happens to get everyone's attention. Oh, they kill the Guardian, and that's what alerts Lo Pan. And then the fight starts, and the big brawl ensues. A lot of Chang Sing and Wing Kong guys buy the farm. I think they all buy the farm, actually, because I don't see any of them escape. And yeah, then they take out Rain first as far as the storms. Lo Pan has completed the ceremony, and so he has become flesh and blood again. And then he was going to sacrifice Grace Law, but she escapes. And then they corner him back upstairs, where he's going to have to sacrifice Mal Yin to complete the ceremony. And so that's when Jack Burton takes his boot knife out and throws it at him, completely misses. And Lo Pan picks it up. I was like, "Oh, it's a good knife, Mr. Burton." Like, goodbye, and throws it at him, trying to kill him. Well, Jack grabs the knife, reverses it right back, and throws it and drills Lo Pan right in the head and kills him, which ends Lo Pan. And then Wang is fighting Thunder the entire time. And once Thunder sees him dead, he begins inflating, and it eventually explodes like a self-destruct. But everyone gets out of the way. And then they have to deal with Lightning, who he comes to attack him, and they are able to get into the room above and drop a statue down on him and crush him. Which, a little fun note, if you watch the movie right there, whenever that happens, he releases one final burst of electricity up through the hole in the floor, and you can see a Chinese character in there, and it's the character for the word Carpenter, because the movie's made by John Carpenter. And then everyone gets into Jack Burton's truck that got stolen much earlier in the movie. A bunch of security guards for the Wing Kong come out and start shooting at them. Egg Shen throws one of his super destructo magic things at him, blows him up, sends him flying everywhere. And then they all hightail it out of there. And, yeah. Then they all kind of part ways at the end, and then that's it. So, you've got all kinds of kung fu shenanigans, magic shenanigans, all kinds of weapons being thrown around every which way, multiple factions fighting each other. Presumably your characters would probably be with the Chang Sings, and or just some stand-in for Burton and Egg Shen, or you'd finagle it based on your characters. Sorry, Burton and Wang Chi, not Egg Shen. And there's enough other characters in the movie that you could just make those the other characters, because they do all go in at some point or another. You'd have to change them so they're actually useful. But there are other characters if you actually want to stick to the names of the characters in the movie. But yeah, I mean, you've got yourself at least the beginnings of a campaign, or at least a multi-session adventure, probably, because you're talking a couple big set pieces. You've got you're probably going to jump to after Mal Yin has been kidnapped, and probably go straight to the fight against the Lords of Death, or trying to find the Lords of Death, and stumble into the fight between the Chang Sings and the Wing Kong. And then, the attempt at subterfuge at the White Tiger, then the attempt at sneaking into the Wing Kong exchange, which ends up in the fight, and then finally the big brawl at the end. So, yeah, I mean, there's enough there. If you pad it out, you could probably make a campaign out of it. Just don't have them kill Lo Pan at the end of this and have him be a recurring villain. You could turn him into a lich, because he is an undead sorcerer. But, I would stick with him being a ghost, because I just don't, ghosts just don't get as much playtime in D&D as villains compared to liches. So, it'd be something different. But overall, yeah, I think it's definitely doable, and it's a good movie. You should watch it anyway. And I sincerely hope that the remake that I keep hearing about never happens, because it won't be any good. So yeah, that's about it for this one. Definitely check the movie out, get some ideas. A few of the setting parts. Now, if it's a D&D campaign, it's probably not going to be taking place in San Francisco Chinatown. It's probably going to be in whatever your setting is. And you could, if you wanted, probably entirely dump the Oriental Chinese influence on the story, because all the themes, character archetypes, and everything could easily be put into the more traditional, like European style setting, like what most campaign settings are, or whatever you've got going on. It doesn't have to be that, because not all campaign settings are Eurocentric. You could leave it with the Asian theme. But I think the whole concept is portable, so that's one thing speak right here in a moment. That's one thing in its favor, and you could probably do without the opening part of the movie where we find out the authorities are after Jack Burton because of all the shenanigans that happened in the movie. And so most of the movie is, in fact, Egg Shen telling his lawyer what happened. After his lawyer's like, oh, you expect me to believe in black magic? And he's like, well, yeah. He's like, why would I? He's like, because it's real. And he's like, come on now. He's like, all right. And puts his hands together and fires an electric bolt between them. And his lawyer's like, all right, I'm listening. So you could maybe have that be part of the theme, but that would probably actually be like towards the end somewhere, where the authorities be after them, because you don't want to start with like, oh, this is all a flashback, because that implies everyone survives. So just something to consider. But yeah, overall, good movie, good choice for something like this. Check it out. But yeah, other than that, see YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know down in the comments, have you seen the movie? Do you think it'd make for a good, the general outline of it, good for a campaign? Have you used it for a campaign? Am I off my rocker? Is it a terrible idea for a campaign? Let me know down the bottom. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you folks later.